You're listening to TFP, the fan's perspective.
Can you dig it?
Once again, ladies and gentlemen,
here we are.
This is the fan's perspective. I am your host, charlietrix, and I'm here with my brother,
remise. What's good, everybody?
What's good, everybody? And this is a quick MMA, UFC, I don't know, foresight?
Predictions. Picks. UFC 300 is coming up, so we had to get something down because this card is ridiculous.
Yeah, UFC 300. If you're living under a rock, you don't know. This card is massive. We were just talking a little bit about it before we got this go on. Let me get myself settled here. I'm looking like a retard. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. Yeah, so this card's got 12 former champions
current
or former champions fighting on the card. This has some new contenders coming over from another league.
Yep, it's got the BMF belt is back up for grabs, which I think the BMF part is kind of funny at this point, but the fight itself is amazing.
And we have some weight debuts, right? Jumping up to a different weight class debuts going on in this card. So here we are, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't know, the fans' perspective, we talk about lots of different topics. Today we're going to be focused on something because we are huge fight fans, and this is one of the biggest cards of the year. $299 was pretty massive. But just to give you an example of how massive this one is, the opening fight for the preliminary, the early prelims, is Deiveson Figueiredo versus Cody Garbrandt. And I don't know, by my estimation, that would be a headliner for like a fight night, I feel like.
Yeah, a fight night headliner, or at least a main event of the prelims for a pay-per-view card, because that's a former champion versus a former champion. Figueiredo's both of them just made the move up in weight, right? Are they?
Yeah,
now?
And
because Cody went down for a while. Figueiredo's fought at 125 mainly.
Yeah, there's been a little bit of smack talk. Figueiredo's been laying into him, but it's a good fight. It's an exciting fight, and that is how they're going to open the card. So just to give you an idea of how this is going to roll out. So, and from there, it's just epic after epic battle coming up. We're looking at Jim Miller making his what fight is this? I don't know, like 700.
Man,
he was on UFC 100. He was on UFC 200. He is now on UFC 300. Jim Miller, New Jersey native.
Jersey in the house.
Shout out to Jim. He deserves it. That man is still doing things, repping for Dirty Jers. So.
From Sparta. That's so funny.
Seriously. What are the big fights? We don't need to go through every single fight on the card, but who are you excited to talk about right now?
So there was one thing I wanted to do first, was to just talk to, because I know a lot of people gamble on these fights, and sometimes people hit me up to talk to me about picks, and I want to give some warnings for gamblers about this card, because there are some sneaky issues on this card. There are guys coming back from being knocked out badly. There are multiple guys coming back from bad lower body injuries, and it's in a big cage, which also helps for anybody who's got better footwork than a grappler, let's say, because there's grappler versus striker matchups. So there's a lot of things to account for if you're going to make bets that you might want to look into before you jump on something too quickly. But that's just the gambler in me wanting to give that warning out, and I'll touch on that with some of these fights. But in terms of the fight I'm most excited for, Max Holloway is my favorite fighter. Justin Gaethje, I think, has the record for most performance bonuses already, or he just always is a performance bonus waiting to happen. The BMF fight is my favorite fight on the whole card.
Yeah.
So, Max Holloway versus Justin Gaethje.
The BMF fight is looking very interesting. Max is coming in as the underdog on there. You know, a lot of people like to rule Max out. They think he might be a little too small, but even Gaethje said it. Max is not a small dude. He had a lot more time to prepare for this 155 fight than he did for his first fight, which was against Poirier, which was, I think he had 6 weeks on that one.
Fight of the year candidate.
It was
one
of
the
amazing
best fights.
Yeah, it was an amazing fight then. He didn't get blown out then. And Poirier caught him with some heavy shots, and that Hawaiian head weathered the storm.
Yeah, it didn't wither.
It didn't wither. It weathered the storm, and it was a great fight. So I think we are going to see a tough battle here between these two dudes. I don't know who's going to walk away with it. Part of me wants to see Max walk away with it because I feel like he stays at 155 potentially after that, and isn't right in line for some of the best top guys up there because Gaethje's sitting at number 2 right now. So.
Yeah, people wanted Gaethje to get a title shot after the Poirier knockout. He kicked his head off. But interesting enough, Max, I've heard people say that Max looks huge right now. I don't pay that much attention to that stuff before the fight until weigh-in day. That's when I feel like I can kind of start to get a feel for it after they started to rehydrate. But supposedly Max looks huge. He's had more time to put the weight on, like you said. And he went toe-to-toe with Dustin Poirier, who's one of the hardest hitters, one of the best strikers. And that was like in the prime of Poirier's run. He's actually now, I think Poirier's finally starting on the downward spiral. Unfortunately, it happens to us all. Time gets us. But with Gaethje, I think the interesting thing is Max always gets called out for not being great at defending leg kicks, and nobody does leg kicks better than Gaethje. He finds angles from even really tight, which makes it an interesting situation. And also, Gaethje is tough as hell, and Max isn't known for power. Max is a volume striker who, he smothers people. He wears them down, and that's not really the style that you expect to beat Justin Gaethje on most nights. Gaethje, typically, you've got to hurt him to back him off or to keep him off of you. But I'm a biased Max Holloway fan. He's my favorite fighter, period, in the UFC right now and for a long time. So I'm still picking Holloway. I think with the added time and size, with the strength, and with very, just great technique across the board, I think all Max has to do is make sure he's not eating too many leg kicks, and he can make it a good fight. He can outstrike Gaethje in the boxing territory, I think, at least. But I understand why so many people are picking Gaethje. I get it. I'm not mad. I probably would if I was being objective. But I'm picking Holloway on that one.
Yeah, all right. Well, listen, the one fight I'm going to say I'm excited about on here, or more excited than the others, is Oliveira versus Tsarukyan.
Yes.
Oliveira, a lot of people say should have just been waiting and going up for the title fight next. But, he had that issue. He had to pull out of the last fight. And here he is coming back. Tsarukyan, a lot of people are saying he's the next thing. They're giving him all sorts of props. If I'm not mistaken, you were a big supporter of this guy, right?
I've been gassing Tsarukyan since he took a fight against Islam Makhachev on short notice and gave Islam the toughest fight of his run to the title shot. And it was a great fight.
And rumors are that Tsarukyan is just looking amazing right now. So they're like a level up from how good he has already looked. So
he smoked Beneil Dariush.
Yeah, he got Dariush lovely. He got him in and out of there. That was a really good performance by him. Oliveira, you know this guy's history. I mean, he's a monster in there. He has had a couple of ugly performances that didn't go his way. So it's going to be interesting to see. The thing is, Oliveira, if you don't stun that guy, you're not taking him out of there easy. And if you give him the opportunity to get going, you start rocking him and he catches up a second wind, he's damn near unbeatable at that point. The last thing, you never see Oliveira go through a thing where he weathers a storm and then starts a comeback and he doesn't finish, man. When that guy comes back from the bottom, he's fucking all over
comeback
it.
Kid, man. And
yeah, so
what does that for Oliveira is he's such a good grappler that even when people hit him hard, they go down to the ground with him, and he's so talented that a lot of them do not want to stay there. Islam's the only one that hurt him and got him out of there with a arm triangle. But even Islam seemed a little bit reticent to grapple with him early. Islam hurt him and then went to the ground with him. But everybody else, they go down there, and it becomes a problem for them. And Oliveira gets up, and then he starts to come back. That's how he's the comeback kid.
I think that's something to keep in mind is that Tsarukyan is no joke on the ground.
Is very good on the ground. But I do think one of the things I think is interesting is Tsarukyan is not like I think of the Dagestani grapplers as almost like a wet blanket. They smother you. They're on top of you. They put their weight on you a lot. And Tsarukyan is more of a leverage player to me. He likes to look for ways to get himself stacked and throwing powerful strikes from the top, from when he's on top. Even though he can be that wet blanket and he can smother somebody. He's good at scrambles. He's very good grappler. And I still think Oliveira is the better grappler, but it's close. And that could be interesting if Tsarukyan's able to hurt Oliveira, or if Tsarukyan decides to make it a grappling match, because the striking's very close too, and I kind of I edge both striking and grappling to Oliveira, but not by a lot, and with Tsarukyan having more of the explosiveness, whereas Oliveira will have he also is explosive, like catching them with something, but Oliveira almost like gets guys on their back foot and then he hurts them. It's almost like they don't know what's coming next, and then there's a flying knee or something crazy hurts them. Yeah. So
yeah, Oliveira is definitely, he doesn't jump out as me as Mr. Counter Striker.
No, never. He's like walk them down and damage them, and that's kind of what makes this fight exciting. Is Tsarukyan is not a backing up guy, even when he fights dudes like Gamrot, who that was a debatable decision that he lost. It's like he does not like to fight on his back foot either. So it's one of those fights where you're guaranteed to have fireworks. There should be some good scrambles and some grappling technique thrown in there. And I expect it to be a great fight. Again, I'm also biased towards Do Bronx. I'm a huge Oliveira fan, but I am picking Charles Oliveira to win this one.
Yeah, and I do think that Tsarukyan has what he needs to win this fight. I think he needs a lot to go his way. But I will say it'll be really interesting. Suppose he goes in there and smokes Oliveira. He's sitting there and just going to wait his time to get Islam next.
Yeah, I have said for a while that he's a big threat to Islam, because go back and watch that first fight with Islam. He took that fight on short notice. He gave Islam hell. Like, that was a really good fight. And I think it came down to the third round, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to go back and rewatch it again just to be clear on it. But I remember thinking that was a razor-thin, super competitive fight. So Tsarukyan's been a prospect to watch, and now he's finally making his move. I just think of all the guys in the top 5, Oliveira is the toughest matchup for him stylistically.
So we've been going on almost 13 minutes now. We've talked about 4 different fights, and we haven't even talked about the main event or the co-main. And I'm not even ready to talk about those yet. There's actually some more fun fights on this entire card that we should mention. First of all, Bo Nickal, massive UFC name right now. They are doing the slow walk, trying to bring him up, I think, the right way. A lot of fighters agreeing with that statement. Because, a lot of times we see guys that are doing good get thrown to the wolves right away. It's nice to see Bo Nickal sort of going one step up at a time. However, this fight does come off as a little lopsided. He's fighting Cody Brundage, and damn, the odds on this fight are insane. Right now, just off of UFC webpage, they got Bo Nickal at minus 2,100, Brundage at plus 1,100. So
for the non-gamblers, if you bet $100 on Brundage and he wins, you get $1,100 is plus your 100 back. So you get $1,200 on the dub. But it's that way for a reason. It's the UFC is slow walking Bo Nickal and making sure he's, prepared. It's actually shocking to me that a fight with those odds would be on the main card of this, and that's caused some drama, but I get it. Bo Nickal is possibly the brightest prospect in the whole UFC right now, as far as his wrestling accolades speak for themselves, and he's being built up as somebody who's going to be a future champion. And they're already talking about him challenging Khamzat Chimaev, who was the big prospect and is now just one of the top guys. But yeah, Bo Nickal's really good, and Brundage is being brought in here as like the jobber, essentially. He's the Brooklyn Brawler on this card for the UFC. They brought him here to lose. That's no disrespect to him. That's what the UFC's intention was here.
Listen, if you're gambling with these damn odds, I just got to throw a couple bucks on this guy because who knows what happens, right? Brundage is more experienced. And if it does go the other way, that's a quick couple bucks in your pocket. But anyway, quick reference.
But as a high-risk gambler, I do not suggest any money on Brundage personally. I think there are upsets that I have picked out that I would be more... I have a higher affinity for, and that's the one I want to talk about next.
If you're gambling, go with Remy's picks. Don't go. I'm talking from the heart.
I'm a pretty avid gambler. Yeah, but I think there is an upset on this card that it's still a risk pick, but I think the odds make it really worth the value of taking the shot at it and the circumstances. And that's Holly Holm versus Kayla Harrison.
Yes.
That is
another fun fight on the card. Kayla Harrison, this is her UFC debut.
Judo gold medalist, Olympic gold medalist.
Yeah, she is a very thorough, strong, solid physique woman. Holly Holmes, much more slim, tall, that athletic physique, and two very different fighting styles. Holly Holmes is like a damn ballerina in there with her footwork. And Kayla Harrison looks like Shrek when she's moving around the ring. So
very lumbering.
She's a great fighter, but I think we know what this is. This is, Harrison drag her to the ground and try to choke her out. And Holm, just don't get taken down and piece her apart. But the odds are insane on this one as well. And I feel like, I know it's disrespectful, but there seems to be a little bit of sleeping on Holm. Maybe because Holmes has gotten, taken out by that rear naked choke several times. I'm not sure, but I feel like Holmes, it should be a little closer than what we're seeing here.
Yeah, the odds don't make sense to me. So when we look at career-wise, Holly Holm has fought the best of the best at 135 for a long time. When did she fight Ronda Rousey?
Forget
and Ronda Rousey was the judoka who used the threat of grappling to make her striking more effective, and Holly Holm danced around her, kicked her in the head, knocked her out, and took away all of the mystique of the Ronda Rousey reign. She ended the Ronda Rousey reign, not Amanda Nunes.
And she even, if you watch the training for that fight, she trained for specific defense against certain judo throws, and you saw it play out in the ring on that night. So it was very interesting to watch.
Yeah, and it's just Holly Holm has been fighting the top of the top at 135, and I think that's an important designation to make, 135 pounds, because Kayla Harrison has not competed at 135. She was in the PFL competing at 145 pounds. She has not made weight at 135, and it reminds me of when I spent mad long telling people, do not bet on TJ Dillashaw versus Henry Cejudo, because TJ Dillashaw hasn't made 125 since before college, I think it was. He never fought at that weight. He didn't even wrestle at that weight, really. And with Kayla Harrison, it's a similar thing. I do not trust a fighter to deal with that weight train in their first fight on this big stage. And then you add in, like you said, Kayla Harrison's footwork is probably the worst part about her. As far as when I watch her fight, her footwork bothers me. Some of her striking habits, she's not polished there. And Holly Holm is very polished there. So what people are counting on is that Harrison can just bully her, get her in the clinch, maybe, because Holm does have a jumping in issue, especially later in her career, and take her down and choke her. But for a 3-1 dog Holm, that's crazy to me. I've already put some money on Holly to get the win because I just think it's worth the risk when we haven't seen Harrison fight at this weight. We haven't seen her fight anybody this caliber, and it's her UFC debut in a much bigger cage than say they would if they were at the Apex Center. At the Apex Center, I might pick Harrison because there's less room for Holly to move around, but give her the mobility advantage, plus the big cage, plus potential for weight train impacts and dehydration. I'm going Holly Holm on that one.
Yeah, I am officially, and I don't gamble, I'm putting some money on Holm just because those odds are disrespectful, odds makers. That's terrible.
Yep. The other upset that I think I was a little surprised he's a dog is Jiří Procházka versus Aleksandar Rakić. I think the lines have moved a little better since I placed my bet. I got him at plus 120, but I think Jiří I take him over Rakić right now. Yuri's been back from injury. He didn't look bad fighting Michael Pereira, a.k.a. the champion, a 2-division champ. And Rakić just coming back from a torn ACL. He hasn't fought in over a year. So this is another fighter coming back from injury. He's a grappler, so, it's a grappler versus striker, essentially. And people are counting on Rakić to take Procházka down and win the fight that way. I just don't think it's going to be that easy. I think Procházka is perpetually slept on, and I don't get it. He's really, really good, and he's been good since he was fighting in Europe.
I think the one thing about Procházka is people sleep on his ground game. He's a very weird striker. He does these odd angles and throws these kind of strikes you don't typically see coming out of fighters. If there's a traditional, the 1-2 boxer guy, this guy's the opposite of that, However, he did okay on the ground against Glover.
Yeah.
Of all people. So,
yep.
If you know anything about Glover, so I think his ground game is slept on. I think this is one of those fights where I actually was remembering in my head Rakić looking good, but we looked at the stats and everything, and realizing he's coming off an ACL tear, I definitely lean towards Jiří on this.
Yeah, this is another one where if Rakić was 100% healthy, I'd be more understanding of people just running with Rakić as the winner, and the fact that Jiří was a dog. But I gotta throw this in. The way I discovered Jiří really was when he fought King Mo, and the first time he fought King Mo took him down and won that fight by keeping him on the ground. And ever since then, Jiří worked on that ground game and became really good at it. He beat King Mo in a rematch. He went on like a 12 or 13 fight win streak. And then he loses to Pereira when he's first fight back from an injury, and gave Pereira, I was surprised that he was giving Pereira the fight that he gave him, even though it ended, within 2 rounds. They were going at it, man. Jiří is good. He's one of those guys. I think people sleep on him because he's got a bit of an awkward style, but I think he can get this done. And I also should throw in, we had a discussion where I was saying this card has everything from intrigue, blah, 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 but it's missing beef. The fighters all seem like they don't dislike each other necessarily. That changes with Procházka and Rakić, because Rakić has been talking a lot of shit, and Jiří seemed a little pissed about it when he got asked about it. Like, he did one of those speeches of, this guy doesn't know me. I don't know why he's assuming things about me. Don't talk about me. Keep my name out your mouth. And I love that. I like that there's at least a little bit of drama and friction. So maybe we'll see some beef form at the press conference tonight.
So you know what? Let's save the main and co-main and just reference a couple of there's only a few more fights on here that we haven't talked about. One of the big ones we mentioned, Jalen Turner versus Renato Moicano. And I think you had a prediction for this one.
Yeah, that's my pick for KO. Renato Moicano is a really likable guy. He's got one of the funniest Twitch channels and personalities.
He's got more likable since his podcast.
Yeah, as soon as I saw him, he trash talks nonstop. He's just a funny dude, very outspoken, and
he's an honest trash talker.
Yeah, and he's also tough as hell. He's not afraid of anybody, but that has also gotten him knocked out by guys. And his recent run, you're seeing him mix in a little more grappling and wrestling. And I think people look at Jalen Turner and think, oh, well, Mateusz Gamrot took him down. Mateusz Gamrot is really good at getting takedowns. I don't think he's ever fought somebody that avoided takedowns from him. I think he's taken down every opponent. Maybe Dariush, he didn't. I know he ate a knee against him. But Jalen Turner is an overwhelming dude. And the people that have beaten him have been really good, have been able to strike with him. And I don't know, I just think Jalen Turner's an overwhelming size, and I can't get the vision of what Turner did to Bobby Green out of my head. So I just think Turner's going to beat Moicano. I'm picking Turner for a KO on this one.
Turner's got a 5-inch reach advantage on Moicano. He's also 6'3". Moicano's not that sure. He's 5'11", but there's a difference there. And 5 inches on those hands with Turner being the one slinging them, because is it me or did he get faster? I mean, he looks. Maybe it was just with the Green fight, but he looked fast and heavy. You know, like he was hitting hard.
Yeah. Oh well, you know what? Everybody he's fought, it feels like Turner's biggest issue has been gassing a little bit. He slows down, but if you watch the first round of Turner versus anybody, pretty much all of them take a few shots and then start to kind of have to change their game plan or approach. And I think that's the thing is, I don't know that Moicano is going to be able to avoid getting hurt in those early exchanges because Moicano's a bit chinny.
Yeah, well, and he's aggressive with his fight style. So he puts himself in harm's way, which makes for a great fight. Shout out to Moicano. I do think you're right. I think Jalen Turner is going to take this one. Someone else, another fight to throw out there, Jessica Andrade versus Marina Rodriguez. I'm not blown away or over.
My least interesting.
Yeah, it's like this is one of my least interesting fights in there on the card. Just overall, I think where they are in the lineup, you know, it's. I don't think it's going to change much whether the number 4 here beats the number 6 or vice versa.
Yeah, it feels like Andrade is kind of starting to hit that fall off. It used to be Andrade's style has always been being a bully where she just walks people down. She can take a punch to give a punch, and she punches harder than anybody in her divisions. But I think that's kind of starting to fade. Rodriguez, though, is not somebody that I'm super hyped on either as a prospect or a talent. I think she's good. They're both good. It's just not the most exciting fight for me because I don't see them competing at the championship level anytime soon. But maybe that's just me. You know, I lean Andrade, but I'm not very committed to either pick, especially since Andrade has started to fall off in my eyes.
Yes, and let's put it out there. Sadiq Youssef versus Diego Lopez should be a very good fight. I like watching Sadiq. He's good. This is going to be a tough challenge. He's coming in as the underdog against Diego Lopez. Another fight where great fight, exciting. Not the ones that I'm most interested on 300 at the moment.
Yeah, to give Diego Lopez his props, both his last two fights, he's finished in the first minute and a half. A minute 38 seconds against Gavin Tucker, who's not bad. A minute 30 seconds against Pat Sabatini, who's pretty decent. And then before that, he had a fight of the night. I think it was split. No, a decision loss to Movsar Ivaluev, who people are saying should fight for the title soon. So, like, Diego Lopez has his bona fides. Even in losses, he's tough. And Youssef, just a really good all-around fighter. There's like one of those fighters where he's never made that leap where you're like, okay, now he's ready.
He hasn't broke out yet, but he looks like he still has that in him where he might, you know?
Always gives me, like the feeling that there's another level to where he can go with this, you know? And it's just he runs into these guys. Like his last 2 losses, he's lost 2 fights in the last, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He's lost 2 of his last 10 fights. It's to Edson Barbosa, who's
tough fight
Edson
for
Barbosa,
anybody.
And Arnold Allen, who I've been gassing forever, and I think Arnold Allen's really good. So those are not the types of losses that you sleep on a guy for. It's tough to predict because Lopez doesn't have the resume or the list of quality fights like Youssef does, and Youssef doesn't have the quality wins to put him above. But I kind of lean towards Youssef, even though I know a lot of people are on the Lopez train. So I could be just late to that party.
Yeah, you know what? This may end up being one of those nights where the 2 fights I'm least interested in are the 2 most exciting fights of the whole night. Who knows? But I will tell you this. Let's jump into the last 2 fights we haven't spoke about, the main and the co-main.
Just before that, I did want to mention on the Bobby Green-Jim Miller fight.
Okay, yeah, let's talk Jim Miller. He deserves it. That's my Jersey native right there.
That's my guy. And the reason I wanted to bring it up, though, is because normally with Jim Miller up there in age, with the size difference, I would probably be leaning towards Bobby Green normally. But I mentioned Jalen Turner's knockout of Bobby Green, and even Bobby Green talked about it recently, about how, like, the ref could have got him badly hurt because he was unconscious and Jalen Turner landed 2 or 3 extra punches.
Yeah.
That was in December.
That was an ugly fight.
Yeah, and that was in December. That was recent. So my concern is for Bobby Green to be coming back so quickly is what makes me uncomfortable about the fight. I don't like that Bobby Green's returning so quickly. And so I'm kind of leaning towards Miller in this fight. And again, maybe it's Jersey bias. You know, he's tri-state rep. He's also been around forever, and I root for him. But I tend to be a Bobby Green fan. I don't like this fight for him just because of the fact that I don't like when guys rush back from something like that.
Yeah, I mean, you're right to put that out there. And I will say this.
We missed one too. There's another fight we got to touch on.
Okay, that's, this is potentially like Jim's at the tail end of his career here. I mean, the guy might be on UFC 400. Who the fuck knows with him? But I see him wanting to get this win. I think he's highly motivated. He was very happy he ended up getting put on 300. It's a statement kind of thing. This is like a bit of a legacy fight for him in a way. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I'm gonna lean with the native tongue here.
55 fight career. He's already got the record for most wins in UFC history. So potentially he could add to that. He'd be up to 27 if he wins. He's at 26. The fight I wanted to bring up, Aljamain Sterling's moving up to 145 and fighting Calvin Kattar, who is very good. And it's a striker versus grappler fight. It's pretty exciting for me. The only issue I have is Calvin Kattar is also returning from injury. He tore his ACL a while ago. And he's also a little bit on the older side, which makes injury recovery a bit tougher. And I say that as an older person who has had ACL issues recently. And it's not fun to try to come back from. And when you're fighting somebody who's going to spend the fight trying to get you to the ground or using the takedown threat, it makes it that much more worrisome. But to Kattar's credit, he is a very good striker. He's got very good boxing, and his footwork is good. So it should be a very interesting fight, especially for Aljo, who's doing his first fight at this division and fighting somebody who's going to be bigger than him when he was typically the bigger, stronger guy at 135. So it should be interesting.
Yeah, this is a very interesting fight for me. I think, if it goes to the ground, Aljo's going to have a fun night. That knee's not going to do any justice for Kattar, and Aljo will probably try to snatch that thing off. However, Kattar's hands are no joke. A lot of people forget that about him because of that Max fight where it was real one-sided. But Kattar's hands are no joke, and he is going to be the bigger guy. Aljo is also coming off a knockout, so it's going to be interesting if Kattar can catch him before those grappling exchanges get too hectic for him. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, I lean Sterling because of the circumstances. I think it's a more interesting fight than people think. I do not dismiss Kattar's chances of scoring a pretty exciting upset.
All right, you ready to talk about these last two fights?
Yes, sir.
So I don't know which one of these fights is going to be more exciting. I am leaning towards Weili Zhang and Yan for the more exciting.
Yan Xiaonan.
We got Yang versus Weili for the co-main. Jamahal Hill versus Pereira for the main event. Exciting top of the card here. I do feel like this Weili Yan fight, though, has the potential to be a 5-round war.
You know what, Xiaonan is really tough. My problem is I think I look at Weili as the dominant female in the whole damn
she's the cream of the crop
right now. I think she's the best female champion right now. Alexa Grasso's new to the fold. Raquel Pennington's just got her belt. Zhang has been cooking. This is her second title reign, and she's looked really good. And it's hard for me to picture, to see Yan winning the fight. Maybe she makes it an exciting fight because she doesn't back down. She's got a lot of heart. But I think Zhang is just the superior fighter in every level of this thing, which is not an insult to Yan. It's a shout out to Zhang Weili being the cream of the crop, possibly the best female fighter on the planet, IMO, my opinion, pound for pound.
Yeah, I think what the hard part with this fight is to see how Yan, it's hard to think of how Yan beats her, because let's face it, man, Weili's a monster. So All right, sorry about that. Was a little hiccup / glitch, but we are up to the final fight we want to talk about: Alex Pereira versus Jamahal Hill. So let's get into this. I forget where we were, but let's pick it right back up.
So that was one where I wanted to talk about Jamahal Hill's injury and the timeline for his return, because it doesn't really add up to me, and that's why I'm like heavily leaning towards Alex Pereira.
Yeah. So before we get into that, I just want to say for this particular fight that Jamahal Hill has been, I guess, kind of angry going into this a little bit, but ultimately talking in a way where he's gonna walk across the ring, hammer that right hand, and Pereira's going to sleep. So very interesting. Jamal's got heavy hands. If he does connect, I'm thinking it's lights out. But talking to Remy, which he's going to bring up right now, just there's something else on the table that, should be considered in this fight.
Yeah, and even before we talk about that, on the technical side, I've heard people say, like, Jamahal Hill's not afraid of Pereira. I think Izzy even threw that out. Adesanya's picking Hill. So there are people siding with Hill on this, and he does have heavy hands. He's got nice boxing. He's good with that. But the first things first, Pereira is not easy to hit. Like, people talk about that as if, just because he's unafraid. No. Pereira is going to make you hurt to try to get to him. And Sean Strickland wasn't afraid, and Sean Strickland got slept in like 2 minutes, man. So I hate that that's become a talking point for this fight. Look at the technique. If you think that Jamahal Hill's reach and, boxing will be able to catch Pereira when he's throwing a kick or something, okay, I get it. But the vibes, I don't buy that. Second of all, Jamahal Hill ruptured his Achilles about 9 months ago, and I went and did some looking into what people in other professional sports, how long it took them to rehab from Achilles injuries, or ruptured Achilles specifically, and how long it took them to get back to form. And what I saw, it said 9 months is when people, or 7 to 9 months is when people get back to practice, full contact, and doing everything. So that kind of fits the window. But it also mentioned that the majority of those athletes needed at least a season to get back to full form. So we're talking like a year and 9 months. So Jamahal Hill's coming back in the practice window, and we can't be sure he's going to be to form. We can't be. I didn't like the style matchup for him before the injury. And now we got to think about, with a ruptured Achilles, is the structure still there? Does he have the power to plant and really throw that? Can he pivot on it? And how are those leg kicks going to feel if Alex Pereira starts hitting him and he's feeling it in that same general area? So there are a lot of question marks without getting into even the stylistic part. And to me, I had Pereira, I gave him the edge before considering the injury. But after reading up on a ruptured Achilles and hearing how, the recovery takes time and getting back to full form I am very heavily leaning towards Pereira on this fight. And I'm a little surprised that so many people have kind of started to swing towards, Hill for the upset. No, I don't see it personally.
Yeah, so I actually thought that Hill was probably the favorite in this fight. Just watching him, I thought he was going to come in the bigger, stronger guy, and it was a matter of when he connects, But, I mean, looking at it overall and just really thinking about all the, stylistically, Pereira he has a really solid shot, especially when you're adding in that injury and coming off of that. And what I wanted to ask you is, what do you think it means for Pereira if he does get this win? Because this is a whole new thing now. He's coming in the champ. It's a second division championship for him. And if he gets a win, it's against the guy who relinquished the belt previously. Plus, it's a official defense. Mm-hmm. So he is officially a 2-division champion. It's just a whole new status right there.
It just adds to, he's building a legacy really quickly. Beating Israel Adesanya was already impressive. He had, a nice run at 185 as far as getting to the title shot and then winning the belt. Then you move on to light heavyweight and knocking out Yuri, who I already gassed up earlier. But if he beats Hill, he's really solidifying his places. Like, he's going to be an all-timer on the combat sports all around because he also has the history with glory and success as a, in the Muay Thai kickboxing realm. I really hope that this doesn't turn into people rushing to move Pereira into heavyweight because there's been talk like that. One title defense, to me, isn't enough for that. You clear a division out. And I would say the winner of Jiří versus Rakić, even though Pereira beat Jiří, I think that person should get a title shot next. I think that should be where he looks. Solidify your place as a champion and then worry about moving out of divisions. This is like something I've been complaining about a lot recently because every single champion right now has talked about fighting up a division or down a division to be multiple division champion, and a bunch of them either barely have title defenses, barely have title reigns, or don't have title defenses, So it frustrates me to see that, and I hope that the angle people take after this isn't, oh, what if Pereira goes for history and wins a third belt at heavyweight? Don't give me that. Defend the belt. Clean the division out. It's not a deep division. You win 2 or 3 more fights and you're there. And actually, that'll buy time for whatever the Jones Stipe thing is to clear up, and then Tom Aspinall can establish himself as a champ, and you actually have a good champ versus champ fight. Because I think Jones beats Stipe, rides off into the sunset, retires. Aspinall has the way cleared for him, and it's going to be Aspinall Blades probably, and then you'll have that set up for the future.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it'll be interesting to see if that's the direction they go. It seems like if they do that, it's kind of it's like a legacy run type of thing, or just trying to be the only guy who did it, maybe. Because who else? Is anybody else? I don't think anybody else did. not in the UFC for sure. Maybe if you consider outside of the UFC, you can probably scrape together a few guys that
look around. I know there were guys that won at middleweight and light heavyweight and Pride. I don't think anybody made all 3 even there. So it's interesting.
but I do think that this is going to be a great fight. I think it has the potential to be over. I don't think this is going past 2 rounds if it gets out of the first. So I'm excited.
Someone gets slept.
Yeah, I'm excited for this card, UFC 300. It's fantastic from top to bottom. We will be tuned in, and you know what? Let's talk about the bets real quick.
Yeah, so we had a discussion about how earlier, me and Los, we were talking about how parlays are like a big thing. Everybody likes parlays. So I was saying we should do, what are the upset fights that you would be willing to take a risk parlaying 2 or 3 of them together? And I have a parlay that I placed like early on just to catch the odds when they were at their best, which was Jiří and Oliveira. I parlayed those 2 together. And if I were feeling really ballsy, I'd throw in Holly Holm too and go for the triple threat on that and get crazy booster on my odds. But parlays are always dangerous. Just a word of wisdom. But yeah, that would be my parlay pick.
I think for my parlay pick, and this is a mess. I'll say it again. Don't follow my picks. But I am going to take Holly Holm and Jim Miller.
Word. And that's a good one because I'm not sure if we caught it, but Bobby Green is 4 months removed from a really ugly knockout. So I think Jim Miller has better odds than normal for an upset there. And then the other one, for the people, I know Brundage is like plus 1,100. So if you really believe in it, Brundage parlayed with any other fight will have crazy odds. But even expecting Brundage to win to me is like too risky. I'm not putting any money on it.
Yeah, I just, I'm just curious to see. Like, let me just pull up here. What was Brundage's last fight? Reese?
Yeah.
Before that. I don't know.
He doesn't have like a crazy extensive record. He doesn't have any major, that's the fight that makes me really think I believe this guy can win. And it's not even like he's beaten everybody he's fought. He's got multiple losses. So I really do. I know it's messed up, but I think the UFC picked him as a showcase for Bo Nickal. That hasn't always worked out for them. They've done some of these where it backfires, but I think this one, I think Bo Nickal's the real deal. I think more power to Brundage for taking the fight and taking the risk, but I do think this is one where Bo Nickal is going to show out. And I would probably bet on a submission just because the chokes are going to be there, I think.
All right. Well, you heard it from us. UFC 300 predictions, bets, etc. We're going to be dropping another one of these. If anything exciting happens after the press conference.
Yep. 8 o'clock tonight, there's a press conference.
We'll jump on.
Allegedly, they're going to announce a date for Michael Chandler versus Conor McGregor. There's been hints that there's going to be some type of big news. People are saying it's going to be Conor news. But thrown into that, I do not believe a Conor fight until he makes weight and is walking down, essentially, at this point. It's just, I don't know. I'm skeptical always.
All right, if you stuck around this far and you haven't hit subscribe, please do so. Hit the like button, and we'll talk to you soon.
Salute.
Can you dig it?